Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Row by Row Garden Show. We're coming at you live from Hoss Tools headquarters here in Norman Park, Georgia. I'm Travis.
And I'm Greg.
And we're excited to have you with us today for our debut show, and we hope you're with us for many shows to come.
Had a little technical problem this morning getting started. We're running a few minutes behind, but Big Jim got us up and going, got us straightened out, and we're thankful for that. So, our new gardening show is called Row by Row, and it's not going to cost you a lot of dough. If you want to grow a good garden, then you got to watch our show, Row by Row. And I'm rhyming this morning.
That's right. So today we're going to talk about a few different things. One of the first things we're going to talk about is the top 4 reasons you should grow your own food. And then we're going to get into a little bit of what we have going on in our gardens now, what's growing, what we're getting ready to harvest, and that kind of stuff. So look forward to that coming up on today's show. But first I want to talk about just a little bit about the show, how the show came about. So we've had our YouTube channel for a while, and many of you have probably seen our YouTube videos, but we wanted to have a more regular contact with our customers and our audience and our friends who we like to share our gardening experiences with. And so we wanted to start this weekly show, and we put out an email blast several weeks ago and asked for recommendations on the show name. And we had we had actually a lot of really good suggestions, and we did some voting around the office here and settled on this name here, Row by Row, the Garden Show.
Now, my favorite one was Get Your Hoe and Get in the Row, but it didn't make the cut. You know, we had a lot of good ones I thought of, but what we did is what we try to always do. We let our people, let our consumers, our customers, our people, our fans and all help us choose the name, and then we come up with Row by Row, which turned out pretty good.
So what can you expect from this show? Well, we want this show to be for everybody. We want this show to be for people who are beginner gardeners, people who have just started out, that maybe need a lot more assistance. We also want this show to be for those experienced gardeners, people who may have been doing this for 10, 20 years or so, but still have room to grow. We can always be learning new things. And for some of these small scale market farmers out there, maybe you grow a little more food than you'd eat, and you sell a little bit of it on the farmer's market or have a little small CSA. So we want this show to be broad enough and informative enough so we can cover and provide information for all of those groups of people.
Now, when we have a lot of people that is experienced gardeners, old timers as I would call them, that's been growing a garden for a long time, and there's a lot we learn from them. For by no means do we think we know everything, and that's the great thing about having these communities. We can all learn from one another. I mean, just to give you an example, a couple of years ago, a guy named Bobby in Texas turned us on a variety of corn we hadn't ever grew before. So there's a lot of techniques out there that people that have used and gardened for a long time that they have found it works for them to share with us and that we learn a lot from. So it's a community that we all learn from, and maybe we can help with some of our experiences with people getting new to gardening, you know, to start growing. But also people within that that's been doing it a while can help those new people. So we view this as a community. We can all help one another. And by no means are we experts. We've just been doing it a while, and we have found some things that work, and we love showing and sharing what does work and how to be successful growing your garden. But it's a community, and we all learn from one another. So we always take into account what other people are doing and what is working for other people.
And that's right. If you ever think you've got it all figured out when it comes to gardening or growing your own food, you are poorly mistaken, because we learn new stuff every year, try new stuff every year, and if you fail at something, it's okay. You just learn from it and move on, and then know to do it different next year. That's all part of this wonderful learning curve.
If you garden long enough or farm long enough, you're going to have failures, and you're going to have them pretty regular. The thing about the new is pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and go on and learn from it and try to do better next time. I made a pretty bad one this year, and I'm just now getting over it, and I've not even got able where I can talk about it good. So we have them here. We just dust yourself up and pick yourself up and go on and try not to make a mistake again.
So every show, we want you to put your questions, if you have any, in the comments below, whether it be on Facebook or YouTube. Put your comments or your questions down there. If you have any suggestions for topics for the show, you can put those in the comments as well. But we want to hear your feedback, and at the end of every show, not this show, but in future shows, we'll have a question and answer segment at the end where we'll pick several questions from the comments and we'll answer those. If we use your question on the air, you'll be the proud recipient of one of these new fancy Hoss drink koozies right here.
Several different colors. Well, we got red and gray.
We got charcoal color
Charcoal.
and then we got a red color, same as on the Hoss logo. So really nice, high quality neoprene koozies. If we use your comment on air, we'll send you one of these. All right, so let's jump into the first segment today. And we want to talk about reasons for growing your own food. So at Hoss here, our message and our slogan is, we help you grow your own food. That's what we're focused on. That's what we're passionate about, growing your own food. And we want to talk about the top 4 reasons we think an individual should be growing their own food. So let's start out with number 1. The number 1 reason you should be growing your own food is that you know what's in it.
Well, the last few years, there's been a big push for organic food production and things like that. Now, years ago, I'm going to say 20 years ago, the term organic just simply meant natural. All organic was a natural way of growing things. Well, a few years ago, the government actually got behind this term, and they pretty much own the term now, organic. So what they did is they set standards about what you could and could not use in organic production for it to be certified organic. And they have a list on the website. If you go to it there, and we can put the link in the description down there, where you can actually go find what is approved to be used in organic production. Now, there's some things in that approval that's not natural. To give you an example, bleach is not an organic product, but it is allowed in organic production as a disinfectant. So there are some products on that list that are not natural, and vice versa. There are some products that are natural that are not on that list. So when you talk about organic, you have to go to that terminology. You have to think about it from a standpoint of a listed procedure that you can use for that production or not. Now, in a garden situation, you need to talk about more natural than you do organic. When you're growing your own food, you want to make sure that you grow a nice, good, clean, healthy food. And there's a couple issues out there that I have personally that I don't want to put into foods I eat. And one of them is a class of chemistry called the neonicotinoids. Now, this is an insecticide which is the most widely used insecticide in the world. And it's used a lot in commercial production of vegetables. I have a problem with the chemistry and the mode of action, the way it is put into our food system. Therefore, I have decided not to use that. Now, growing my own garden, I will use some conventional products in there that I think are fine, and then I will not use some that I have a problem with. And those classes of neonicotinoids, I definitely have a problem with. A lot of the systemic insecticides and fungicides, I have a problem with. So I choose not to do that because I think it's healthier for my family, for my grandkids, for everybody to eat.
So the level of strictness with which you have with your organic program is completely up to you. You may choose to use some products, like he said. You may choose to use all organic pesticides and use some conventional fertilizer. You may want to go completely organic and use organic pesticides and organic fertilizers. It's completely up to you. But when you grow your own food, you can control that. Whereas if you buy your food, you have zero control of what was put in that food. And I can guarantee you, almost always, they were taking the most, they didn't have you in mind when they were growing that food. They had a bottom dollar in mind. Whereas if you're growing it, you have the quality and the cleanliness of the food in mind.
Yeah, one of the problems I have with the commercially grown leafy greens that's being grown today is the nitrate levels. So in England, European Union had set these nitrate levels years ago where they could test their food and see the amount of nitrates in there, because excessive nitrates can be detrimental to your health. Here in the United States, we have no threshold for nitrates in leafy greens, and that's a little bit of a concern for me, and they're used a lot. I'm telling you, nitrates are poured on these leafy greens, and when you buy them in the store and they cause some stomach irritations and problems, sometimes it's from those excessive nitrates. So excessive nitrates and some of the pesticides are the biggest concerns I have about commercial food production, and that's one reason I like to grow my own food, because I can control that.
Yeah, and that's definitely the case. You can tell a huge difference between eating turnip greens you get from the grocery store versus ones you've grown, because one of them's going to make your stomach hurt, the other one's just going to make you want to take a nap. So.
And I can promise you that nobody is, you may want to think that the government's testing all your food to make sure it's safe for you, but nobody is testing these pesticide levels in this food. They may be doing some spontaneous, minute testing somewhere, but for the most part, nobody is testing the pesticide levels or the nitrate levels in the food you go to buy in the grocery store. So if I was going to have to go to the grocery store and buy food, I would definitely lean toward more the organic section than I would the commercial line. But the best way to do is grow the majority of your food.
All right. So that was point number one. We want to grow our own food because we know what's in it. On to point number two, we want to grow our own food because it's better quality food. It's more nutrient dense. If we buy food at the grocery store, a lot of times that food's already cooked. A lot of the nutrients have been removed. A lot of the water's removed and been replaced with preservatives and stuff like that. So the quality of the food, the taste of it is so much better. The nutrient composition is so much better when we grow it ourselves.
Yeah, if you ever harvested sweet corn directly out of your garden and went and cooked it, you can definitely tell the difference from that and corn that's 2 weeks old. So having that freshness out there, I mean, to give you an example, I'm experimenting with beets this year. Never been a huge beet fan, but I've never grown them myself. So I grew them myself this year, and I'm eating them fresh, and I'm cooking them myself, and I'm starting to enjoy them. So there's a lot of things out there that I enjoy that's fresh out of the garden that I wouldn't necessarily enjoy if I bought it from the grocery store and it had a different flavor and it wasn't as fresh as what it is coming out of my own garden.
Yeah, I feel the same way about the beets and with especially cauliflower and Brussels sprouts. I'll eat just about anything, but I was never a huge fan of cauliflower or Brussels sprouts. And come to find out, the main reason behind that was I was getting some nutrient poor versions of those vegetables that just didn't taste good. Now, when I started growing my own cauliflower and Brussels sprouts especially, and we cook them fresh out of the garden, man, just the flavor and the taste will just blow you away. So if you don't like something, don't grow it because you don't think you like it. You may have never had that fresh out of the garden version of it, which could taste completely different than the store-bought version.
English peas are another prime example of that. I despise them out of the can, excuse me. But fresh English peas with some taters, whoo, make you want to slap your cat. That's good stuff right there.
All right. So, well, that was point number two. We want to grow our own food because it's better quality, better nutrients. The third point here, which is a big one for me now, because I have 2 little boys, is we want to grow our own food because it teaches kids the value of working outside, and we can pass down those skills to the next generation so they can be used and those skills aren't lost.
What we have seen with our business here is we have 2 different types of customers. We have the older customer that grew up, this my age or older, and grew up and they had a grandfather or father or somebody that took time up with them in the garden, and they got a pretty good baseline of how to do things. They may need a little help here and there, but they got a pretty good idea of how to do things because they paid attention when they were small and they actually seen it happen. Then we got the younger generation where there was something lost there. They was, the knowledge got lost down the generations sometimes. Back in the late 80s and the 90s, we've seen a big downturn in vegetable gardening. And I think some of that knowledge, skill set got lost during that time there. So that's one reason we try to do the YouTube channel, is try to explain to people but it's important that we reinstall that skill set into the next generation, and we teach these kids how to actually play in the dirt and to get out there and grow something. It's very rewarding to us as adults when we see something grow. Imagine what it is to that 3-year-old, 4-year-old when they actually see something produce out in the garden, and they know what it is and they know where it comes from. They're a lot more apt to take that fresh vegetable and to eat it and be receptive of it than they in something you just put on their plate.
That's right. And I see with a lot of people my age or maybe a little bit younger, often the case is that their grandfather used to garden, grew a big garden, was all about gardening, and then their parents, for whatever reason, didn't garden. And so that skill set was lost. And now the third generation that is my age or close to my age, they really have a strong desire. We see from surveys and people we talk to, millennials, they're talked about in a bad light a lot of times, but millennials have a strong desire to grow their own food. They're passionate about it and want to do it. The problem is that skill set wasn't passed down to them like it is some people, and so they're out there searching for that knowledge. So if we can get that knowledge back in the pipeline, passing it down from generation to generation, we can really hold on to this concept of growing your own food, which is really important.
And it's rewarded. I mean, like I said earlier, we get a big kick out of it when we grow a big watermelon, especially if it's good. So, it's a rewarding hobby to have, to pass it down. And it's one of those hobbies that cost you a lot of money. Actually, there's some reward there because you're getting bounty for what you do. So we're a big proponent of growing your own food and teaching those kids how to get out there, be productive, and grow their own food too. Be there with you.
Yeah, and if your kids enjoy gardening, that's a lot cheaper thing for them to be involved with as opposed to electronics and playing video games and things of that sort. And they'll be a lot more active, be a lot more healthy, and really invested in what you're doing. And you can even, I've seen some people who they don't really want to market garden themselves, but they'll grow enough food and let their kids sell it on the roadside stand and really teach their kids the value of working towards something, and then they sell something that they work towards, and I just think that's a really neat idea as well.
Yeah, just to give a little plug out there, but there's this guy in Alabama called Cog Hill Farm. He's got a pretty active YouTube channel, and he's a hoot to watch. But he incorporates what we're talking about with gardening, the homestead life, incorporates his kids into that and tries to teach them that, and he has fun doing it. So if you get a chance, check out Cog Hill Farm over in Alabama. His YouTube channel. I think he's got a Facebook presence as well, but his YouTube channel is probably the largest. But he involves his kids there and raising livestock and growing his garden. It's just neat to see how that comes about.
Yeah, I think he calls himself the dancing farmer.
Yeah.
And just randomly in the middle of the video,
he'll just strike out.
Just strike out dancing, and it's a nice little break in the action there. Really, really fun to watch. So
Jason's his name.
That's right.
And we're going to be working with Jason in the coming future, so we're excited about that.
And then the fourth reason you want to grow your own food is, and you touched on this a little bit earlier, is the satisfaction of doing something, setting a goal, and reaching that goal and having that reward. A lot of times, I like to say, a lot of us get involved in fruitless hobbies that doesn't really have any satisfaction or end goal to them. But growing your own food, as frustrating as it may be sometimes, you have an end goal that you know is coming, that fruit or that vegetable is going to taste so good and you're going to enjoy. And seeing that goal through really provides some satisfaction for you.
Yeah, and one of the biggest, things we see, even on with our Facebook page, whatever, people love to post pictures of what they grew. So there's a huge sense of accomplishment when you grow that big pumpkin, when you grow that pretty head of lettuce, or whatever. You're really proud of what you did, and you should be. You're really proud of what you did, and you want to share it with other people. So it's just part of it. It's part of our human nature to be proud of what we do when we do something, accomplish something, as well as growing something nice out of the garden.
Yeah, people love to brag on their garden, and we love to see it. It doesn't have to be humble at all. If you grew some great looking carrots or some great looking onions, put us a picture on the Row by Row group and let us see them, because we want to be proud for you and just as proud as you are. So don't hesitate to show us what you got and brag about it a little bit.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, so that covered our 4 top reasons for growing your own food. And now we want to take the end of the show here and just to talk a little bit about what's going in our gardens. You know, we live here in the deep South in South Georgia. We're about an hour north of the Florida line. And we've noticed a huge, we can just tell by when orders are heavy or slow, when people are kind of starting gardening around the country. And we are well aware that we're ahead of most people. You know, it's just starting to warm up in some of our northern states. But we just want to give you an idea of what we have going on now, kind of the level of things we're at, and then hopefully that will inspire you, some of you guys up north, to get planting and get some stuff in the ground as well.
I talked to some people in the industry this week because we was a little bit concerned about the way the spring come about, and the whole consensus, everybody's consensus was that we've had a late spring even up north. So a lot of you guys have been facing some unusual spring temperatures, and it's been late getting things out, and we've been a little bit later down here too. But one of the things we did do this week, or I did this week, was I harvested my onions. Now we did a video the other day on onions, and we got some comments down at the bottom about when you should harvest, when you shouldn't, the way you harvest and all that. And I just want to go over with you today the way I do it and the way I have found to be successful with onions. Now by no means is this written in stone the way you got to do it. I just want to share with you my experiences, because I have gotten to be a lot better onion grower than I used to be. Used to, I couldn't grow a very good onion, but I have gotten a lot better at growing onions, and this year I grew a great crop. So let me explain to you a little bit about what I've learned about growing onions. Onions take a lot of fertilizer, a lot more than I anticipated. Also water, take a lot of water. You put the water and the fertilizer there and keep that plant from stressing, and you're going to grow a big bud. Now, another thing too is I never throw soil to my onions. I don't cover them up, because in the past I've grown a smaller onion by covering them up. So I only use my sweeps when I cultivate, and I don't move a lot of soil up on the onion. If anything, I may take a little bit away from the onion. Now when my onions get about this size and I see this top start dying back and it folds over, when I see 2 or 3 of those doing that, as I did Sunday, I say to myself, I said, it's time to pull those onions. Well, I knew for the next few days I wasn't going to have any rain. There was no rain in the forecast. It was going to be hot and dry. So I knew this was the ideal time for me to go ahead and pull those onions and let them cure before I, store them. So when I see that onion do that right there, I seen probably 3 or 4 of them doing that. I went there and I pulled them all up. When I pulled them up, I just laid them right back down. And I let them sit out in that sunlight for 2 days and let them cure. And that means simply dry out a little bit. Now yesterday afternoon, after 2 days, I go out there with my wheelbarrow and I harvested them all. Then I put them inside my barn and I store them in an area that's out of direct sunlight, that has some wind flow, and it's on the ground, and the moisture's going to get to. And we can eat onions for about 10 months out of the year. Our onions store really good. We grew this yellow granite this year, which is the Vidalia variety, Texas Legend, which is a sweet onion. And those store really good for us. Now we grow another variety called Candy, which is a red onion, that doesn't store quite as well for me. It's nice to have some variety out there, and I love growing the red onions, but they don't last quite as long as what this particular one does. And you can see that's a pretty good size onion. And most of them are that size there. So we get to store those up, put them, you got to make sure that no moisture can get to them up from the ground, and also try to stack them so they don't touch one another. And if I can, I lay a little wheat straw down, and I lay those onions down, and they'll last 10 months. So, onions to me is one of those great things that keeps on giving from the garden. They're easy to grow. They normally come off so I can double crop that area. But the biggest thing when I start to harvest my onions is I want dry weather. So I want to pull these things up, I want to lay them down, and I don't want to rain on them for a couple of days. And that's the reason when I seen those tops laying over and I knew I was going to have some dry weather, I went ahead and pulled them, cured them, and then got them and put them in the barn. So onions is one of those things that I love to grow. I've gotten better at it. It takes a little practice to grow an onion. Also, onions like a little sulfur. So if you could add a little elemental sulfur to them from time to time, that does help them. But fertilizer, water, don't stress that plant. Don't throw soil to them. And when it's time to harvest them, have a plan in action there, and you'll be successful growing onions as well.
Yeah, and I'm just getting ready to harvest mine as well. We're actually going to shoot a video, plan on shooting a video towards the end of this week, weather permitting. We'll show you, some video footage of the onions, and I built a new onion, tater, and winter squash storage rack this winter that I'm really excited to show you guys. I think it's going to work really good. In the past, we just laid them on the dirt. Here in the South, we don't have basements or root cellars, but people have these open air barns, and you can lay your potatoes or onions or sweet potatoes or winter squash just on the dirt in these open air barns, and they'll store 6 months or even longer. The problem I was running into was the way the wind and the rain can come in sometimes was blowing underneath that barn. I was getting a little moisture on them, and you definitely want to keep them dry. So I built me a storage rack, and I'll show you guys that when we shoot that video.
And it helps a lot with space. I'd like to have me one too. I got in the plans to build me one. So, when you start stacking them up, you can put them in a lot smaller space than doing what I'm doing now, which is just covering the floor of the barn with the onions. It does take up some space, so the storage rack is definitely on my to-do list.
All right, and what else we got going on in the garden? So up until last week, it had been abnormally cool at nights here, which is it slowed a few things down. The okra was growing pretty slow. It's just now starting to take off. So the cool nights hurt the okra. Not a big deal because we'll have plenty of okra. That stuff will grow all throughout the heat. But things like our tomatoes and especially our potatoes. I've got the best looking potatoes I think I've had in 4 or 5 years. And these cool nights just seem to have kept the disease and the pest pressure down and just let those plants get really big. And I'm really excited to start digging taters. I got some plants starting to die off now, so I presume in the next couple weeks we might start digging some taters around here.
Oh yeah, and we got several different varieties that we're growing this year that we're trialing. So we're stepping out a little bit with our tater variety and expecting some different results there. In the past, we had planted just red Potomac. Now we're stretching out and trying some new varieties. I've even got some fingerlings planted. So those don't produce quite as much, but they're great to eat. It's a little different. We got some of the bluebells. We got some purple ones planted, and those have done real good. Now I got a lot of vine. I hope I got plenty of taters underneath that vine because I got a lot of vine growing. Also, we've got Pro-Cut sunflowers probably about knee high. And if you hadn't grown the Pro-Cut sunflowers, they're strictly a cut flower type of sunflower. I think Dan Faith posted a picture on our Row by Row group on the Facebook of him planting some. And he said he grows a lot of them, and he's got a flower farm. So we got turned on to them a few years ago. The Pro-Cut series are absolutely the only sunflower that I grow. They make a nice big head, and they only come about chest high, so they don't get way out of whack on you. Also, they don't droop that pollen once you cut them and put them on the table or whatever, so the pollen don't fall off of it. It was bred specifically for the cut flower industry, and I'm gonna tell you, I've not sprayed mine for any insecticides. I did fertilize them. They are fairly drought resistant. They are easy to grow, and I think they are an addition, should be an addition to every garden. They're great pick me up. I mean, I don't do a lot with them. I give away. But sunflowers to me is a great addition for the garden. I love it when they bloom. It's a short-term crop, don't last long. When they come in, you got them there. But it is a great thing that you should probably think about growing. They can be a little bit on the expensive side, but they're well worth buying the Pro-Cut over some of the regular oil varieties.
Yeah, definitely. We always like to plant some kind of cut flowers in our gardens. We usually a row or two of zinnias, and then some of those Pro-Cut flowers. Just add some color, makes you feel good when you walk out to your garden. And then for those crops that need those pollinators, your squash, your cucurbit, stuff like that, they're going to bring in those pollinators that are definitely going to benefit those crops and increase your yield on those.
Yeah, and the zinnia that we plant is Benaria Giant. If you're planting any other variety besides that, you definitely need to try the Benaria Giant. It's a great variety of zinnia. It's probably our favorite. It's the only one we've grown the last few years. I have grown coxcomb in the garden. I've not got it in there this year. I like coxcomb, but it can be a little bit invasive if you let it go to seed. It can come back and be a little bit of a weed problem. But I try to grow sunflowers and zinnias all the time. Also, we here in the South, I'm not trying to brag anything, but we got corn knee high. We've had beautiful weather the last little bit, and I know some of you guys up north are probably envious of that. But what I did this year is the same thing I did this year. I kind of stepped out a little bit and I planted this variety right here, which is Bloody Butcher. I really like this type of corn here. It's a red corn, as you can see, and it grinds and it makes a great grits meal and for cornmeal. And we love to grind our own corn and make our products such as that. I grew this last year and really like it. It makes the best grits you've ever eaten. All right, so I did that. Then I got turned on. This guy mentioned on one of our Facebook posts a corn called Jimmy Red, which is a strain, I think, of this Bloody Butcher. The Jimmy Red was found, that strain or that corn was found off the island off South Carolina. And it's been, in the past few years, it's been brought back. A lot of people's growing it for seed and it's trying to gain the popularity. This is it. I can't tell a lot of difference in this and the Bloody Butcher, but they supposedly have done some genetic testing on this and say this is actually a different variety. And I found some of this corn seed and I'm going to plant me a late crop of this right here and I'm going to compare it to the Bloody Butcher. Supposedly this has a better taste, has a more nuttier flavor to it than the Bloody Butcher does. A lot of you shelves up in Atlanta, whatever, have really gone crazy over this Jimmy Red corn. So I'm going to try this year, compare the two, see which one I like. If it gets much better than Bloody Butcher, I don't know what I'm going to do. But I do like growing those red corns. So that's one thing that we're growing a little bit different this year. Our Bloody Butcher is about knee high. My ambrosia corn, my sweet corn, is a little bit behind that. It's probably half that tall. And it's coming along too. So we ought to have, and it's growing fast. So we ought to have corn before too long.
Yeah, I was a little ahead of planting him on the sweet corn, and my ambrosia is about waist high. It should start tasseling soon, and I swear it grows 3 or 4 inches a day. And we've been really pumping the fertilizer to it. It's so green, it's almost black. You know, it's pretty corn. But well, folks, to be honest with you, we could sit here and talk about our gardens all afternoon or all morning, all day. But we got to get back to packing gardening tools. So, and we got to save something to talk to you about next week. So
what's going on next week?
So next week, we're going to be talking about perennials and fruit trees or fruit bushes that you need to be having on your homestead. I've got quite a few on my homestead. Many of them I didn't plant. They were already there. And Dad's got a few here on his. And want to talk about, how to kind of plant them so you always have some kind of fruit coming in, the different kinds you should be growing. And so we're really excited about talking about that next week.
All right, so folks, so get off that couch and get out there and get something done.
Have a good one. See you next week.